It is great to be with you all. You have dreams for your life, don't you? You have dreams for your kids' life. You have dreams for the lives of the people that you love. And God has something much better. Promises. What's so good about a promise from God? It can't be broken. He can't break it. It's not in his nature to break a promise. Is there anything that God can't do? Yes, he cannot break a promise. Even if it cost him his life, he will keep the promises that he has made to you. But how do we make sense of God's amazing promises to us, breathtaking promises, with our lives the way that they're turning out when they're not turning out the way we want them to? The knot of doubt untangles when you understand something, when you realize that you are in a story and you are in the messy middle of the story. You're not at the end. You're in the place of wrestling, of waiting for God's promises to be fulfilled. You need what the Bible calls, are you ready for it? Patience. Today we discover that if we can wait with patience in the fire, the flame will forge us into something great. Today we leave here discovering that if we can wait in the fire with patience, the flame will forge us into something great. We're in our series called Delighting in Who God Is, Delighting in His Kingdom. And what we're seeking to do here is to bring Eden back. Now, God's original calling on humanity, the OG calling, was that we would take the goodness and beauty of Eden and we would spread it out till it covers the earth. That was our goal, that was our plan, that's what God had in mind for us. That was our destiny. And something happened to that plan. We fell for a false promise, a trick. We wanted a shortcut because we had these dreams and we had these desires, and they weren't coming as fast as we wanted. So we looked for the apple, the shortcut. Only when we thought that these promises, that these hopes and these dreams would come like the speed of light into our life, instead of what we found was darkness. Today, I think we think things like this. If it was us, we would never have eaten the fruit. We would never have bitten into the apple. Well, I want to tell you something. When life has you down, the shortcut of the apple starts to sound really good. How do you avoid the apple that ruins your life? The answer is patience. We're in Isaiah chapter 40 today. I'm going to read to you just verse 31. It says, "But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." Do you know the story of Joseph and his brothers? In the book of Genesis, Joseph comes from this group of people, this line of people who were going to help bring the whole world into the promised land. In other words, their job was to bring Eden back. And Joseph would find out that he has a big role to play in this. So he had these two dreams. One of the dreams was the sun, moon, and stars were bowing down to him. Another dream was all of his brothers, his family were bowing to him. And Joseph believed that this was more than just a dream, but it was promise from God. Joseph believed it, that he would be like a king and play a significant role in bringing all of humanity back into Eden or into the promised land. God has made some big promises to you on your way back into Eden. And if you hear them right, I think you have to logically say, I at least wish or hope that this is true. I think a lot of people that reject Christianity aren't rejecting Christianity itself, but something they are mistaking it for. If you are hearing what this says, if you're really hearing it, at the very least, you have to be saying, I wish this was true. I hope that this is true. So what are these great promises that we have in all of this? Well, let me give you some of the promises that are on repeat all throughout this. First promise is that God is always with you. The God who created you, the God who knit you together in your mother's womb, the God who made the cosmos, he walks beside you. Now that could be terrifying, unless the second promise were true, which is that he's gracious and he'll be gracious to you. It's this idea that there's nothing you can now do or not do that will make God love you any more or any less. In other words, his love is constant because grace is God giving you this undeserved favor. He's spoiling you with love. So when you're walking through this life and you feel alone and you're lonely and you feel unloved, the one who matters most, whose opinion matters most, the God who made you, he loves you with a wild love. When you feel weak, he's your strength. And when you feel sad, there is enough joy in him to set this whole world into laughter. That same God is with you always. And the third promise we see is that all things work out for the good of those who love him. You know, we messed everything up. The idea that God created evil is not a thing. Their evil is a twisting of what is good. So humanity, what we did is we twisted what was good into something evil, into something less than what it's supposed to be. It became tainted and twisted, became wrong and distorted. You know what God does? He takes things that are twisted and wrong, and he unwinds them and brings them into something more beautiful than they were before. That's what God does. He works all things out for good. And then this fourth promise, God will finish what he started. One day, all that is wrong will be made right. All of your pain, suffering, and loss, all the tears will be wiped from your eyes. All things will be made right, and you will walk into an eternal bliss. But what happens when God's promises feel empty? Like he won't deliver. Like our lives aren't lining up with these promises. Very soon after Joseph is given this promise in this dream, he finds himself swept up into difficulty. So Joseph, it sounds like, was pretty annoying, but he was his father's favorite. Maybe he was rubbing it in the face of his brothers, I don't know, but Joseph was pretty excited about this dream, and he made sure to let his brothers know about this dream. This promise from God that they would be bowing to him. And they had enough of it. They were tired of their father's favorite, and so they made a plan to kill him. And instead of killing him, they throw him into this pit and then decide we're going to sell him into slavery. So he goes off and he becomes a slave in Egypt. And it gets worse. The wife of his master puts the moves on him. And he rejects her. And because he rejected her, apparently that was insulting for her, so she made up this story that he actually did put the moves on her, not she putting the moves on him, told her husband, and her husband threw Joseph in prison. And for 13 years, he is there rotting in prison. For 13 years, he's like, what about this promise from God? He's dwelling probably on all the ways that his brothers have abandoned him, forsaken him, done this evil thing to him. What happened to God's promise? What happened? Was his faith a sham? Did his hope trick him into something, into believing something? The context that our verses are written into are God's people are in exile. Their life is not going the way it was supposed to go, and God has made some promises that he's going to bring them back home. Only he's not doing it on their timing. And so they say this in verse 27. This is God speaking. He says, why do you say, O Jacob, and why speak, O Israel, this? My way is hidden from the Lord. In other words, they have this spiritual disillusionment. God no longer, they think, sees their path. He no longer understands their pain or their future. And it's like God has forgotten all the promises that he kept, or he no longer plans on keeping them. And they're looking around at all the other nations, and the nations are thriving, and they don't know God. Seems like not only is knowing God and following him maybe not working, but it's actually making it worse. And then the verse goes on and it says, is my right disregarded by God? In other words, God promised me something and I feel tricked, disappointed in him. I don't know if you've ever felt disappointed in God. I want to tell you a story. Imagine a mother who holds her newborn in her arms as she feeds him. She feels a love so strong she would give her life at any moment for this little boy. She has dreams for his life and trusts in God's promises for him. But this mother was hit with every mother's nightmare. Her son got sick and the diagnosis was unclear. This wasn't part of the dream and this wasn't part of her prayers. She grieved over the way his life was turning out, but still she kept praying for him. But the more she prayed, the worse things got. She no longer cared about God's plans. Her heart was broken. If there was an apple to eat that would make him better, she probably would eat it. When life tortures you, relief of the apple starts to sound really good. When life feels like this, you probably don't care about what God's promises are anymore. They feel too distant, cold, and unbelievable. When the apple offers a shortcut of relief, a respite from the pain, it starts to look appetizing. Now, does the Bible even tell us what to do when we feel this way? I don't know if you feel this way. Think of a time that maybe you did. Does the Bible offer you a way through this? The Bible is, if you have read it, the most hope-filled book you will ever read. And it is also the most honest book you will ever read about what life is like in this world. It's filled with hope and brutally honest. And the brutally honest word it gives us today is patience. Patience literally means long suffering. It means to suffer a long time. That's what being patient means. And this is bigger than you not getting mad in traffic. You know this thing that people always say, don't pray for patience because if you do, God's going to give you reasons to be patient. If you will just read this and see what the promises are, you will see that this life doesn't need to throw anything at you to make you long for something more. This life requires patience no matter how good or bad the traffic is. This life is hard. It is not an easy life to walk through. Patience is about suffering through the wait. Patience is hope that despite everything, your faith is not wishful thinking, but a rock-solid foundation to build your life on. When nothing seems good, fair, or right, patience says this: I will wait for the clouds to part, for the storm to lift, and the sun to pierce through my heart with joy. Our verse says, they who wait for the Lord shall what? Renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. And the word wait in Hebrew is kavah, and it means to hope, to wait, to look for. It's like life is not treating you well, and you look out upon the horizon, and you're looking for any type of runner, someone to come with some type of good news that say, it's over. Everything is good. The pain is gone. Looking for good news. Patience is hope working hard in the wait. It's a refusal to give up in the face of God's silence, delay, or pain. And patience is not passive, it is active. It's like you are refusing to give up hope. And when you do that, what happens to you? It says that you're renewed with strength. And this Hebrew phrase means something like exchanging strength. So you offer God all of your weakness, and he offers you the fullness of his strength. This is about the strength of God piercing through your weakness. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know the weakness that I'm talking about, you just haven't walked through this life long enough. It will come and it will hit you and it will hurt. And you will be looking anywhere for something to give you hope. And that is when you are most likely to find God, and you are also most likely to find the apple that will ruin it all. What does this strength look like when you grasp it and you find it? It says you're mounted up with wings like an eagle, which means you have a breakthrough. You're waiting for hope and then it just comes. Or it says you're running and you're not growing weary, which means you just keep going. Like you're transforming in this life. You're growing and it's just not stopping. You're having this period of just pure transformation. But it doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it says it looks like walking and just simply not falling down on your face and fainting. It just simply looks like one step each day after the next. It's not always soaring and it's not always running. Joseph waited 13 years. 13 years of not fainting. He could have cursed God. He could have shaken his fist. He could have gave up on God, and maybe he was close to, but he kept walking with him. The Bible does not sugarcoat what life is like in this world. Sometimes you're in the fire, and as soon as you get out of the fire, you're thrown into the frying pan. Life is hard. But faith is patient hope that keeps you from fainting. This mom, she never stopped praying for her son. She cried through many of those prayers as she prayed for him, putting him to sleep. Many nights she came to the end of herself, but a hope still flickered. There was still a faintly burning wick, a small candle that God wouldn't let go out. And each day was a struggle for her to pray, a struggle to hope, and a struggle to keep fighting. Patience is a choice. And there are apples everywhere that are offering you a shortcut, a quick fix, an easy way out, a path that is outside of God's design for you. And in the end, that path will enslave you. I want you to imagine it like this. There's two houses. You're on this road walking through this life, and there's two houses, and they're both offering you the bread of life. Sweet aromas fill this house. And in one house on one side of the road, it leads to death. It promises everything, and it leads to death by fire. And on the other side, there's a house filled with these aromas, and it leads to life through fire. It's a forging by the flame. And what happens in the one house is it's not promising fire, it's promising you everything, a shortcut, a quick fix, only it swallows you up in death. And on the other side of the road, it offers you strength through difficulty. There is no shortcut in Christianity. It is a long and difficult road through, but through it, you're strengthened. Through it, you're forged in the fire. But do you notice both houses have fire? In one, it leads to death, and the other, it leads to transformation. You got to pick one. Which one do you want to pick? Don't fall for the shortcut. And there's tons of houses along the way. There's a numbing house, a house that promises to numb the pain through addictions, distractions, escape, like drugs and alcohol and pornography and social media. These are apples, and they are offering to you an escape, a respite from pain. And they entrap you, and they twist you, and they change you into something less. Wait with hope. There's another house that promises you control. Maybe you have a career that you're hoping flourishes, but people keep overlooking you. If you're in control, then you could twist the numbers. You can lie about your competition. And in doing that, you try to take the quick fix, the shortcut, and you twist yourself little by little until you're unrecognizable. You have the house of doubt. Doubt's the easy way. Doubt is easy because I'll tell you why. Because hope is painful. You hear? It's the pain of hope. And I'll tell you why it's painful, because hope requires you wait. And you think the day is coming, and it doesn't. And it's a pain all over again. It's a difficulty all over again. It's a suffering all over again. But if you just give up on God, if you just turn cynical, then you don't have to deal with the pain of hope anymore. Maybe you're always a bridesmaid and never a bride, and any man starts to sound like a good apple. Maybe you want to be pregnant, and you keep watching your friends have baby after baby, and you keep miscarrying. The apple of isolation is very tempting. Listen to this. The apple offers relief without trust, comfort without growth, the empty promise of Eden without the path of the cross. Don't take it. Joseph had the chance to pick the apple. He could have chosen bitterness. He could have been angry at God. He had every right to be in his mind, I'm sure. And then there was this woman who was tempting him, his master's wife. Listen, how easy would it be to just say, God does not see me anymore? It's been 13 years. God cares nothing about me. He doesn't see any of this. At least this would be some type of pleasure in the middle of all of this. Maybe some kind of escape. But he doesn't choose the apple. He keeps waiting. And finally, he has his breakthrough. He becomes the second in power over all of Egypt. He waited and waited. And what you begin to understand now is that God's timing and your timing are very different. And that is the hardest part about all of this. Because when God's timing is different than yours, it's very easy to let doubt creep in. It's very easy to get angry at God. Sometimes the fulfillment of God's promises are a long way off, and sometimes they are after this life is over. While the mom watched her son struggle, she saw other kids thriving. Could she keep trusting God? Would she? Maybe her story wouldn't be like Joseph's. Maybe she would never see God's promises fulfilled in this life, but only the next. Could she endure that? So she had a choice. Would she still trust God? The apples were many. She could have denied God. She could have turned toward anger at other moms. She could have chosen isolation, but in the end, she endured. She learned to surrender her son's story to God. That is when she could start to have joy and peace again. It wasn't perfect. It was still hard, but she began to see purpose and meaning in his life. Strength rose up in her. The promise wasn't gone, it just wasn't playing out the way she thought that it would. We are not the writers of our story. God is. And you have to hand him the pen. Do you know what you're doing? You're on your keyboard clacking away, trying to write a story that overwrites God's story. Hand the pen over to him. Let him write your story. It's not going to be what you would write, but in the end, you will find that it is something much better. Patience is not a one-time choice. It's a daily decision that you have to make. A daily decision of hope, of waiting. One more step. And if you'll learn to do this with God and his promises, you're going to start finding yourself being patient with others. You're going to start to see yourself long-suffering others because you're going to start to see that they're in a similar story. That they're struggling. They're in pain. They have loss in their life. And you're going to see your story in theirs. And it's going to give you patience for them. In fact, the word patience, while it means long-suffering, it's also a word picture. And the word is long-nosed. It's like this picture of a bull that's angry and you see smoke coming out of its nostrils. Well, if you're long-nosed, it means that there's a lot more distance for that anger to come out. So that's the picture of what patience is. There's all kinds of reasons for you to be angry, but you wait. You're patient with people. You're patient with yourself, with your own growth. Some of you need to hear that. It's the only thing you need to hear today. Just be patient with yourself. Some of you are maybe too patient with yourself. And then you'll start being patient with others, with your spouse, your kids, your friends, your coworkers, your extended family. That's what Joseph had to learn. Finally, the day came when Joseph rose to power. And he had the wisdom to know from God that there was going to be a famine in the land. So he prepared and stored up all these houses with food, storehouses of food. And then when the famine hit, all of his brothers said, let's go to Egypt. We've heard they have food there. That was Joseph running. No, his family running to Egypt. And his brothers get there, and they bow before a man who is second in command over all of Egypt. They have no idea that it's Joseph. And then he reveals himself, finally. And when he does, at some point, they're terrified of what he's going to do to them. And listen to what he says. What you meant for evil, God meant it for good. What you meant for evil, God meant it for good. And there you have it. The person who is patient understands that there's going to be evil that we walk through in this life. There's going to be pain, there's going to be suffering, there's going to be loss, but somehow it's going to turn for good. Somehow we're going to know that the same way we twisted what was good into something that's evil, God is in the business of taking things that are evil and twisting them into things of beauty, into things of wonder, into things of glory. We're all in a story, and we're in the middle of it. Your story isn't over, and when it's over, you're going to be able to say, all the evil that I endured, God used it for good. Over time, the mother learned this. She came to embrace her son's story, trusting that God is writing something better than she could. No matter the evil and pain he went through, the sun would one day break through the storm and the light would shine on the good that came. And if we looked forward beyond, if we could see a day when the little boy leaped into the arms of God in eternity, on that day we would see all of God's promises come rushing into existence. He would finally have his breakthrough. And on that day we would see that he became far more than what his mother dreamed for him. And she would see him, and tears of joy will flow as they embrace. And the boy will say to his mom, "You did good, Mom. You loved me." And God wrote our stories together, and it was the perfect story, and he used it all for good. when we struggle to be patient, when this life is too much, when we want to shake our fist at God, where are you going to find hope? Don't just look at your story knowing how it all will end. It's not enough. You need something now to hold on to. You need God to hold on to. And what you find is that God is the kind of God who has come into your story. And he has come into your story to long suffer for you. And he does it with patience. 2 Peter 3:9. The Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward you, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance. He's waiting so the world will turn to him. And it's in the waiting that we often find him. And it's in this period of waiting that you are in a position, a crossroads, where you will find the beauty of eternity or the apple of death. You're at your most vulnerable, and there at your most vulnerable is when you either find God or you reject him. And it's in the waiting that you discover that. And it's in the waiting that you find the promise that God has made, that he will never leave you or forsake you. He will make a way through it all. And the proof of the promise is that he died to keep it. He dies to make sure he can keep his promise. He is long-nosed toward us, toward you. His promise will happen. And he is the author of this story. And he is patient with us because you know what we did? We stole the pen. And we started rewriting our story. One that gave us control. One that gave us a victory that we thought would be good. And this story that we were writing all led to death and into hell. So he came in to the story that we were writing and he began to rewrite it. And it cost him everything. And as he hung there on the cross, he bled. But by his blood, he would rewrite your story in redemptive red. And it would be something new, something beautiful. And in his resurrection, in his breakthrough of death, you have your breakthrough. And he lifts you up and he's put you on solid ground. And he said, everything that you meant for evil, I have turned for good. And in discovering that, what you find is that it's all now worth it. You saw a vision of what is to come. And on the day that you're all the way in it, you will say everything was worth it. In fact, you will realize that without the pain, without the suffering, without the loss, and without the evil, you never would have discovered a God who was willing to die for you. And it makes it all the worth it. You never would have known it if all of this didn't happen. If everything didn't go wrong, you would never know how much he loves you. You would always long for more because you never got to taste a love that you knew somehow was yours, but now you can taste it because you have a God who has died for you and rose so you would be with him forever. Seek to bring Eden back. And as you do, there's going to be a lot that you go through. In fact, your choice to bring Eden back is going to lead you into more suffering, but you will have a strength through it. Keep remembering the kind of story that you are in. Be patient in this story. And as you wait with hope, strength will rise up in you, and you will endure. Keep remembering the best is yet to come. And when you doubt it, remember the kind of story you are in, and remember who the storyteller is. The kind that always keeps his promises. Shows up when all hope is lost, like light piercing into the darkness. Father, you know the weight of the pain in this room. You know what people wear on their shoulders. Give them strength to wait. Help them learn to not try to muster it up themselves in silence, in isolation, but help them to reach for you. Help them walk and not faint. Help us to run and not grow weary, and lift us up on wings like eagles. We wait for you. We wait. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, we love to have a time of Q&A. So let's walk through a few questions. How do you differentiate between actions, that is taking things into your own hands, and moving forward in faith or patience? Hope that makes sense. Yeah, I think it makes sense. How do you differentiate between actions, that is taking things into your own hand, and actions that are moving forward in faith? I think you've got to test the waters a bit to know, right? So, in other words, the question is really, what is God's will? And when is it time to press forward, and when is it time to wait? Or how do you know that your choices are the right choices that you are making? And the one answer is, surprise, learn this really well. This is your story in here. A lot of people will say, this is a story about God, and that's it. And that's not true. This is a story of God rescuing us. So find where you are in this story and find God rescuing you, and it will help you find your path through. Now, there are some decisions that all of you are making right now that are probably bad apples that you are biting into. You're doing things that you know you shouldn't be doing. And there's no sign of you stopping. And so the message today is not to just stop eating that apple. The message to ask yourself is, what is the pain that I'm trying to avoid? Because what is this apple? How is this apple a shortcut? What's the pain underneath it? Because if you just get on surface level stuff, all you're doing is behavior modification, and it's not going to go well. Because all that's going to happen is you've got this one sin, and you're going to switch it to another sin. There's pain in you all. There's a longing in you. Figure out what it is, and then let God into it. Let God heal you. If you are at that place of kind of health where you are recognizing that, then you're going to know how to make choices moving forward. But if you're making choices just simply like, okay, what is God wanting me to do? What is he not wanting me to do? And you're just kind of just following the rules, and you're not living free, then you're just going to keep breaking the rules in different ways. The person who is truly free is the one who has surrendered even their pain and their wounds and their heartbreak to God and say, you're writing my story, help me through this. And until you do that, you're not going to actually know how to move forward in life because your pain is controlling everything about you. You are defined by your suffering when you do that. You have an idol, like you have made suffering your God. So get healthy, and then you'll know how to make better decisions following God. I don't know that I actually answered that. So what's taking things in your own hands versus moving forward with faith? Yeah, and it's a good question because, you know, some of you, I said this earlier, some of you need to act. Like that was last week's sermon. You need to act. You've just been sitting around waiting for God to do something, and God's over there, and he's like, come over here. This is where you need to be. But some of you are way over there, and God's still here. And you're not ready for that over there yet. And this is me in a lot of ways. I'm always moving a little bit too quick. So waiting, like in starting this church, oh my gosh, like I have had to learn so much patience in waiting for God, because I'm going to tell you, God is way behind me. Like, what are you doing? And that's probably true for a lot of you. And if you'll just learn to wait with him, you're going to find that the prize is back here with him. It's not in what you're going to do, but it's in him being with you as you go and do it. So wait, and keep waiting, and keep waiting. Were we destined to learn good and evil, but the apple was a shortcut? Okay, that's interesting. This is a very theological question. I don't even know if it was designed to be that way. So there's this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so the question becomes, does God not want us to know what is good and what is evil? Because he says, don't eat of this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so there's a bit of debate about how to handle this tree that can ruin everything, by the way. Like, one of the questions is, why did God put that there? Well, it might be he put it there because one day when we're ready, he wants us to eat of that tree. One day when it's like your children, if you have kids, there are things that they need to learn to walk through in this life. And at some point you have to expose them to things, but you don't want to expose them too early. So finding that perfect moment. So maybe at some point we were supposed to eat of that tree. Or maybe what the tree really represents is, this is us trying to redefine what is good and evil. And it could be that too. Perhaps it's a bit of both. Either way, if God tells you not to do something, don't do it. He's a lot smarter than you. And I know that feeling when you want to do something that God doesn't want you to do, and you're caught in the middle of it, and you don't feel like you could say no. So what do you do when that happens? You give up on yourself, and you trust him, and you ask him for strength. And if he doesn't give you the strength to get through it, first, it's your fault, but second, God is the only hope to get through it. But third, on the other side of it, you always have grace. And then we're told in 2 Timothy 2:1, you then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus. Lesson from that is that a lot of you are trying to be better, be strengthened by yourself, not by grace. It's a very fascinating thing that the Bible would say be strengthened by grace. Somehow, the fact that God forgives everything that you have ever done wrong and ever will do wrong somehow motivates you to stop doing things wrong. It's like you're invited to do anything wrong that you want. It's not going to affect your eternity. And yet, because of it, you don't want to do those things. So, should you sin? No. It's like, I'll end with this. In Romans, the logical response to understanding the grace of God is to say, should we then keep sinning so that grace might abound and we keep seeing that God is glorified as he keeps forgiving us? Like, the glory of God is seen as he forgives you of your sins. The glory of God is seen when he gives you grace. So should we then keep sinning so that grace might abound and God gets more glory? And the answer is no. Because it's not the way that you are wired to live. So live the way, become who you're made to become. But when you don't, God is gracious. It's like when God is God, he's either going to equip you to become to beat that sin that day and he gets the glory, or you're going to fall and he's going to find grace and forgiveness for you and he's going to get glory that way. He's just really good. And there's always a way. And when it feels like there's no way, just keep being patient. All right, let's have the band come up. We're going to sing. Maybe we do a little experiment as you sing that think about the things that you want in your life. Like the things that you're not getting it and it's causing pain in you. Find what's causing jealousy in your heart and just trace that out, and you might find what's causing you pain. Find your wants, find the in-between where it's not coming true, and then just simply say to God, all right, I'm waiting for you. Let's stand up. And as you're waiting, and you're standing, ask that God will renew your strength, lift you up with wings like an eagle, that you would run and be transformed. But if it's not happening in this moment right now, just depend on God for that next step of hope.